Hey everybody, my name is Chris Blankenhorn. Most of you know my work, but you don't know me. I was Holly's social media and tech director through the campaign. And I'm here today to talk about what is a resource and what Green Party locals, state parties, even the National Party, and then even other independent left organizations and community organizations should be thinking about in terms of systems when it comes to answering the question, what is a resource? A little bit about me. As I said, I was Howie's social media and tech director. I'm the Illinois Green Party secretary. I'm a former Green Party of the United States co-chair, serving from 2016 to 2018. At the end of this, I'll bring this up again, but you can look in the at the link, at the bit.ly link, bit.ly/DOT-info. And I've done a number of these systems workshops over the years. This one's a little different in that in the past, I have kind of given a broad scope of like, let's talk about communications. Here's multiple tools that could fill the role. Today, I'm not going to do that. Today, I'm going to list things that Green should look into. You're going to get one option in most cases. And that's just one for kind of expediency, and two, because you know, in the Green Party, we're a decentralized party, but that doesn't have to mean that we're all using different systems, that there's no kind of coordination, that there's no commonality in the way we do our work. So, you know, I'm choosing a number of systems that I know are already at use in the Green Party and the broader left. Most of them were used by the campaign. And so this workshop today is going to be a lot different in that rather than saying you could choose this, this, or this, I'm just saying you should look at this. If you want that broader range of options, if you go to that bit.ly.info link, you can find past slideshows, past workshops, things like that. And also you can find more detail on a lot of these things in, you know, in system sheets that I've got there. And those are regularly updated. This workshop today is the first of at least two that I'm going to be doing in the next couple months on the last Saturday of the month. Next month, we will focus specifically on campaigns, and whereas today is more focused on party infrastructure. So yeah, you can go there, and then I can be reached at chris@howiehawkins.us. You know, I'm more than willing to come talk to your state party, to give a specific workshop via Zoom to your state party, to work with you to narrow down what things you want to talk about, because a key part to any kind of systems work is getting buy-in, because the best system in the world isn't worth anything if your organizers, if your members aren't using it, right? So I'm more than happy to come and talk to people, you know, come and give specific workshops, and you can reach out to me at chris@howiehawkins.us. So I mean, I'll pause a few times in here and see, you know, I'll try to scan the comments and see if there's anything really relevant. But a lot of this is kind of a data dump. So bear with me for that. So let's get started. You know, the name of this workshop is what is a resource. So, you know, we need to start there. And when we're talking about resources, especially in politics, you know, we're usually talking about money, we're talking about people, and we're talking about infrastructure and systems. And in mainstream politics, resources primarily mean money. The major parties have a lot of it. The presidential election alone, the two of them combined for almost $2 billion. Super PACs, party donations, normal PACs, soft money, dark money, the entire electoral system is set up around, you know, controlling and funneling money. And if you've been following us lately, if you've been following Howie's talking points in his live stream and everything, you'll know that HR1, S1, I think it's the We the People Act, while it contains a lot of really, really good voter rights stuff, much needed reforms in many ways, its campaign finance section is going to make it even easier to buy elections. It's going to dump huge amounts, massive amounts of private money or private donations into our election system, even more so now. One example is presently political parties can give $5,000 to a presidential candidate. HR1 is going to let them give $100 million. That's a 20,000 time increase. And while presidential candidates have in 2016 it was, in 2020 it was a $2,800 cap for individual donations during the primary, and then $2,800 again during the general. So the most you can donate is a little less than $6,000. Political parties can take up to $100,000 from a donor every year. So a donor could bank $400,000 into the political parties over the course of an election cycle, and then that can all be dumped in. So, we're dealing in a system that really prioritizes money. And the problem as Greens, the problem as independent socialists, is we don't tend to have much, right? We don't take corporate donations. We're grassroots funded. We self-limit in some ways, but the reality is, and the uncontroversial reality is, that we don't have the money to compete. So when we're talking about resources, we need to, money is not really at present, on the table as a major resource. So the people and the systems become essential, and the systems are essential for making the people work effectively, right? And then the Green Party has tried the money thing. States, locals, the National Party will give modest sums of money to candidates, but the reality is that money's a drop in the bucket compared to what we need, what we're competing with. So we really have to rethink about what we're doing, and we need to think about it in terms of systems, in my point of view, because in addition to the lack of money, Green parties and other independent groups and other independent socialist parties tend to be ran by a small number of overworked volunteers, right? We talk about grassroots, but the reality is much of the work falls on a small number of people. And those people are very much overburdened and burn out. And it means that the capacity of the work that we have to do is beyond the resource that we have, right? So we have to become way, way more efficient. We have to be hyper aware of how overstretched our volunteers are, right? And how much time things are taking. And so how that dynamic works out is overworked people, overworked super volunteers burn out, but they never taught anyone else how to do their job, right? So now no one can do the job, and we're kind of screwed. So we've got part of this, part of systems is we need to make them, they make us more efficient, and we need to make sure that multiple people in the chain of organizing can do the work, so that it's not all on one person. And when one person breaks, when one person has to step away for a second, it doesn't all come crashing down. And this isn't just the Greens. Independent organizations across the country have to break this cycle that just keeps happening. We have to be more proactive about training and developing, the next leaders. So, this was kind of a grim picture, right? We don't have the money. Our people are already overworked. So where does that leave us? Why should a candidate run green? What do we bring to the table as a party for candidates? And this also applies to our coalition work, right? What do we bring to the table when we work with other organizations? If we can provide something substantial when we come to the table, and that we know it's not money, and we know we're already stretched on people, so that leaves infrastructure and systems. When we come to the table with something substantial, we make ourselves a valuable part of the organization. We increase our power in the organization. We ensure we have a voice, right? So how should we rethink this? And I keep alluding to it, but as states and parties and organizations, we have to look to systems and infrastructure. And in the Green Party, if it's not national, states are the ideal home for a lot of what we're going to talk about today, right? A state party is a larger organization, so it makes it easier to invest in things, right? There's a lot of tools that if it's just your local, it really seems like it's unattainable. It really seems like you can't get, you just can't take on the task of setting up and running a new system. Whereas states, if you have scalable infrastructure, states can pick it up, they can set it up, and it can be distributed out to all of their locals, to all of their campaigns, to all of their coalitions, right? And so a lot of what I'm going to talk about here today, it can be very applicable to your local organization, but as a longtime Green and a Green in state leadership, I told my state coordinating committee they didn't really need to come today, right? Because we're doing most of the things I'm going to be talking about. So, I really think this is a great workshop and a great conversation to have for our state parties and for our larger local parties, how we can really get a systems package together that allows you to be more effective in your organizing and allows you to pass it on downstream, so that not only is the core organizing group that in the party level doing the work, but that on the ground activists that can use it, that your campaigns can use it, that your local chapters can use it, and it can make all of your work more effective. And one of the main reasons that I think we need to start thinking about systems is because we get way, way, way more bang for our buck when we invest in systems that can be spread downstream, right? So I will get into the details of some of the things I'm going to say in a little bit, but a big part of why I say that is some basic math, right? And thinking about what do Green spend money on? What do Green campaigns spend money on? And a lot of the times it's things like yard signs, right? So for $100, depending on your local printing your local printing costs, you can get $100 will get one candidate, a few dozen signs, maybe if you're getting a great deal, closer to 50. If you're getting polybag recyclable signs, then we're talking about closer to maybe 15, 20 signs. So $100 doesn't really get you a lot. It can get you a good number of printed materials, but meanwhile, if we took that $100 and invested in systems, right? For CallHub, a system that we're going to talk about later that does text banking and phone banking, for $100 you can get 1,428 minutes of phone banking. You can get 2,000 minutes of robocalls. You can get 2,911 text messages, right? That's direct contact with voters, right? And we'll talk about that too, because you're going to need databases to do this. You're going to need lists to utilize this. But I mean, 20 yard signs versus direct contact with 2,000 voters is a no-brainer to me. StreamYard, another thing we're going to talk about, that just live streaming. You can pay for 6 months of professional branded streams that the party can use, candidates can use, locals can use. We're on StreamYard right now, right? 6 months of that for that $100, and it can be used by everyone. Another thing we're going to talk about is project management. That's 40% of the annual rental from Basecamp from the Young Eco-Socialists, the Green Party Youth Caucus. And that's 40% of getting something that can replace your communications, give you task management, give you project management, and it can be filtered out. It's scalable, and it can be filtered out to all of your locals, to all of your partner organizations, to all of your campaigns, right? And a central part of why thinking about this as an organization is important, right? Is because often in the Green Party, the campaigns are usually the innovators, right? Campaigns are the ones that are figuring out the new tech, and they're moving ahead, and they're pushing things. And merchandise systems is an example. It took me 2 years to do within the Green Party, in terms of transitioning to a new kind of merchandise system. And in Howie's campaign, that was done in an hour, right? The campaign manager, I, and the treasurer talked, okayed it, we moved ahead, right? So campaigns can move faster. They can be more adaptable. They generally have more money and more interest than a long-term party. So they have the ability to be innovators. The problem is campaigns are finite, right? Campaigns are finite. They go away. The election happens, and they either get covered up with the dust cover until the next cycle, or they disappear completely. And the lack of a consistent national database in the Green Party that everyone is using means that those things just disappear, right? Lists just disappear. Volunteers disappear. We need to address the fact that we need to become much better at having our campaigns onboarding people into the party, because parties have permanence, right? And for infrastructure, you need permanence. Unstable infrastructure is ineffective. So that's why it's really important for our parties and our organizations, our locals, our state chapters, to really think hard about what do we bring to the table, what can we bring to the table in terms of systems and infrastructure, right? And the key to it is thinking of these things as ways to make our work more efficient, ways to make our reach larger, things like that. So I'm going to dive into the, actually talking about some systems, because at this point it's just been kind of, what is a system and why is this conversation important to the party? So to start off with our day-to-day work, right? Efficiency is key. Our opponents have massive war chests. They have party infrastructure. They have professional staffing. We can't match them on their playing field, right? So we need to be running the guerrilla game, and that means being smart. That means being creative. That means being incredibly efficient, and we need to use our technology and automation to our advantage, right? I don't know how many people have worked with Democratic campaigns and things, and Republican campaigns and things like that, but one thing I'll tell you about having huge war chests is that they're not very effective campaigners. They spend a huge amount of money in generally bad. I mean, how many mailers did everybody get from their congressional reps, right? How many people were moved by that? I don't personally consider that to be it's one of the higher cost things you can do to do voter outreach, but I would consider it one of the least effective things to do with voter outreach. So it's David versus Goliath, and like many Goliaths, our Goliath is inefficient. So we have to really focus in on how can we do this work better, right? And so one of the key things that we need to do party building, we need more people, but we also need to engage those people effectively. When you show up at a Green Party meeting, there needs to be action items people get involved in. We need to be onboarding people properly. We need political education. There's so much going on. And frankly, the Green Party is decades behind in how we do our day-to-day work. Most of it is done via email. And I'll be frank, most of it is done on conference calls because we are ineffective at working via email. And a big part of that is email lists are an absolutely horrible way to do organizing, right? Things can get lost, things can get delayed. Communication isn't communication, it's people talking in parallel. It leads to poor work between calls, and that leads to, in the Illinois Green Party, we have a once-a-month coordinating call, and it's 3 hours long. And that, a lot of it could be lessened were we more effective in working in between calls. So even though in the Illinois Green Party we picked up a lot of this stuff, we've still got to do the work of utilizing it properly. So in that realm, I really like Basecamp, right? I really like Basecamp. Basecamp is and the primary reason why I like Basecamp is because it is unlimitedly scalable, okay? So Basecamp in and of itself is $1,000 a year, $100 a month. That's unaffordable to the general local party, right? That probably isn't the best use of a local party's resources. On the other hand, that is affordable to a state party in most cases, and even more so because the Young Eco-Socialists, the youth caucus of the Green Party of the United States, it leases space in its Basecamp. Like I said, it's unlimitedly scalable. They can add 1 million people, and it'll be the same cost per year as if they had 100. So right now, it's $250 a year. You can do smaller rentals for 3 months and 6 months. But at $250 a year, you get project management tools, you get communication tools, there's chat, there's message boards, you get to-do lists that have assignable with people, with dates, you get shared documents, a calendar, a schedule, you get automatic check-ins. The Illinois Green Party runs Basecamp space, and it's, like I said, it hasn't completely flipped everything around, but we're a lot happier than we were previously, and we're working a lot more effectively. And we actually just last night rolled out a new website on WordPress, and one of the cool things is, like I said, it has calendars and schedules. From our WordPress to our Basecamp, all of our events are synced. Things like that are really nice. But Basecamp gives us a space where we can have general discussions in a campfire chat, where we can have really focused discussions in a message board. We can create different spaces so that your coordinating committee has a space. All of your membership can be in there and have a membership hub. We can have committee spaces. We can have working group spaces. We can have social media team spaces. You can make spaces for whatever you want. And then inside each of those spaces are communication tools and collaboration tools, right? The to-do lists can be very, very effective. But it's all about getting buy-in and getting people to use it. One of the other good things about Basecamp is that it can be used via an app, via browser, or via email. The email system is not ideal. I will say that. I will more than happily admit that the email, it is not a great system to use via email, but in almost every case of state parties looking at it, the need to use email is always up there because there are people who want to stay in a familiar system. So Basecamp is a really good one. There's plenty of other things out there. Like I said, I have other workshops that you can look at and see the slideshows on and things like that, where I'll go into them. But things like Freedcamp, Lumio, for communications, things like Slack and Flock, may actually be better communications tools, but they don't have all this other stuff. And the reality is, both Slack and Flock, most Green parties are going to want to retain information. They're going to want to have a record and an archive of their work. So they're going to have to pay per user per month. And once you hit about 25 users, Basecamp's cheaper, right? So the scalability of Basecamp is the primary reason why I tend to point towards it when it comes to project management stuff. But it's really super important that we think about how we do our work, because in my experience, the work in the Green Party is relatively inefficient, and that leads to burnout. So we need to, be modernizing. We need to be thinking, if we want young, I'll be honest, I'm also active in the Young Eco-Socialists. I think most youth are turned off and unengaged when you put them on an email list, right? So if we want young folks, we got to be talking in working and communicating in ways that are effective for them and that fit their needs and desires. So day to day, that's the like internal, day to day work that we need to do. We've also got, so to stay internal, I guess. So I was going to go somewhere else, but to stay internal, this one's pretty quick. It's called Freshdesk. It's free, with fees depending on use and things like that, but it can centralize your communications. It can provide collaboration ability, automate forwarding. It has a ticketing system which makes tracking communications pretty easy. We have this. So you're going to hear a lot of Illinois Green Party examples because that's the state party I work in, and this is a workshop oriented towards state parties and locals. So in the Illinois Green Party, we have a info@ilgp.org, goes to the chairs, the secretary, I think the treasurer, a few other people. And when one of us replies, unless we reply all, no one knows that the communications happened, right? Freshdesk gives you a system where all emails from any email that you attach, enters in. It can auto forward to whoever it needs to based on keywords, based on the source. You can assign people to it. So, a chair or a volunteer or a staffer can go in and just skim, just look and be like, okay, that's a question about this chapter. So forward, forward, and forward, and forward. And there's a note and there's a record, and people can leave notes. They can say, I talked to this person. Here's what I talked to them about. I'm handing off to you. Here's the next step. And you can leave all that in notes. It's really nice. And like I said, it's free, right? So a lot of my mindset here is about stacking different systems into a really powerful package that makes Green Party gives us something to bring to the table. Staying internal again is Zapier, right? Zapier is an automation tool. Again, free. You'll pay more if you use it a lot. You'll pay more for specific programs, but hundreds of different things that you can use on the internet. Basically, almost every app you can think of, you can do things with it through Zapier. It basically helps you talk between services. So you can have it filter emails and pull things out and add them into a spreadsheet, right? You can have it so when you create an event one place, it creates an event another place. The Zapier is all about increasing our efficiency. Again, for a lot of things, it's free, right? So there's a little bit of a learning curve, but once you figure out exactly how it works, it's very quick, it's very user friendly. And for the people doing the grunt work of the party, a lot of the times when you want to have an event, you have to make an event on your website, you have to make an event on Facebook, you have to make an event, a few other places probably, and you're doing the same work over and over. And yeah, it's copying and pasting, but it could be made easier. The same can be said for onboarding. You can set it up so that when someone signs up for an email on an email form, they automatically get added to your member Basecamp, right? So rather than having to have someone get the notification that someone signed up and then send them an email and all that, you can have it set up so they get automatically added, they get dumped in, they're ready to work. The response email has everything they need automated, and you just took a step out that someone would have to do, which takes workload off of your existing people and also slows down that lag time, right? Because anyone who's done volunteer organizing knows, like, the longer they're sitting there, the longer they get cold, the less likely that someone's going to engage. So if they sign up and then they find themselves in a space where people are talking and engaged in the party, we're ready to get them moving. Somebody can get them plugged in. And in places like Basecamp, as compared to an email list, questions can be asked much more easily and can be answered much more quickly because it'd be collectively sourced. Everyone there can answer. So yeah, there's that. And so next up, I'm talk about comms for a second. and then then I'll get to the big one, which is system, the database system, and what we kind of the conundrum, the position that the Green Party is in at the moment. So we've talked about how to talk to people inside your party, right? We've talked about how to do the inside look. So now we're going to talk about outside looks, okay? CallHub is a widely used and widely integratable tool, right? Which is really important. Howie's campaign uses CiviCRM for our database. It integrates with it. The National Green Party uses NationBuilder. It integrates with it. The Illinois Green Party uses Action Network. It integrates with it, right? So it can work with most databases, which is super important. The costs can be, they look incredibly cheap. Obviously, they can add up once you start calling people and things, but they are super affordable. 7 cents a minute for phone banking, and there are a lot of variations on how you can do this that can change these prices. But the generic is 7 cents a minute on phone banking, 5 cents a minute for robocalls. Text banking is about 3.4 cents per text. They also just came out with monthly options, which I haven't looked too much into, but it looked like if you're using this stuff regularly, then you should probably look into the monthlies, because you got a lot of minutes minutes and texts for the bang for your buck, before you had to start paying these extra fees. So and again, that's direct lines to your supporters. That's direct lines to voters. I broke it down earlier when I was talking about bang for your buck, and I mean $100 is 1,400 minutes of phone banking. That's huge, right? That's huge, and that's something that we really, as Greens, need to start doing. We need to start doing the groundwork. We need to start doing the direct voter contacting. Saying you're running, having a few events, and putting out yard signs isn't running a campaign. We need to be canvassing. We need to be phone banking. We need to be getting those touches, because that's what gets you votes. Actual direct communication with the voters is, what will get it done. The next one, I guess I didn't have a slide for, but it is the other half of engaging outward. I just talked about how we need to canvas and how we need to do phone banking, but we all social media is incredibly important. COVID made it even more so, and frankly, I think COVID changed a lot of how we're going to do political. I hope we don't forget the things that we learned to do during COVID, because just because we can go back in the streets doesn't mean that these other digital forms of engagement aren't important. But Hootsuite, and you can find it at hootsuite.com, is a scheduling, largely a scheduling program. For free, you can connect up to 3 social media accounts, which is perfect for most green locals, even state parties, because you can connect your Facebook, you can connect your Twitter, and you can connect your Instagram. And this allows you to schedule your posts across platforms, which is really, really key, to building your social media presence. This isn't a social media workshop. We'll probably do that at another time. But real quick on that, the key, without paying for, look at the FEC data. Republicans and Democratic candidates they pay for Facebook ads 24/7. They spend millions and millions of dollars on Facebook ads, and that's because they're reliant on them, right? If you pay for an ad, The expectation of the algorithm is that you repeat the production that you got from the ad without the ad next time. If you don't, you're punished. So then you have to keep paying, right? Which is not something that most green parties can afford. A green candidates might be able to afford it because, like I said, there's an end date. It's finite. You're doing damage. You're damaging your organic reach by paying, but one day you won't need the organic reach because the campaign will be over. So you can do it. For parties, that just isn't an option. So for parties and locals, things like that, consistent quality content is the key, right? And this software scheduling makes consistency easier. You don't have to get up and post once in the morning and post once at noon and post once in the evening. You can schedule a whole week out in advance, right? You can schedule as much as you need to. Hootsuite does limit the number that you can have scheduled at a time for free. But it's $15 a month to upgrade and get that taken away. So if you're at the point where you're eating up your quota, $15 a month is super reasonable, and you're using it, right? It's justified the cost because you are using it. There's lots of other options like TweetDeck and Later. I like to suggest Hootsuite, 1, because it's used throughout the party, 2, because you can start out for free, and 3, because when you do need to upgrade, it's pretty reasonable. In addition to the scheduling stuff, you can do post analytics. You can get analytics across all of your platforms in one place, as opposed to going to Facebook analytics and Twitter analytics and looking at that kind of stuff. You can also deal with comment moderation and responding. So one of the views you have is your streams, and it's the live streams about all the stuff that you have posted, all your mentions, whatever you tell it to. And so you can have it set up to notify you when you get mentioned on Twitter, and you can get the notification in Basecamp, and you can respond, or not Basecamp, you can get the notification in Hootsuite, and you can respond from within Hootsuite. You don't need to log into Twitter to do it. Same with messages to your inbox. You can deal with it all from there, right? At the free and cheap level, there's a limitation of users. You can start paying for more users per user. Obviously, that's going to increase your costs, but at the capacity that we are at as the Green Party in most places right now, you can share that password as an institutional password. We're not at the point where we have, in many places, where we have social media team that have people who only do scheduling and posting, only people who only do comment moderation, people who only need access to the messaging, right? And that's the real power of paying for individual users is only giving them access to specific things. And then the last outward one that I wanted to talk about before we get into the big question of databases real quick at the end is StreamYard. We're there right now. I bet we have a powered by StreamYard. See, we're on StreamYard right now. So StreamYard starts out for free, right? You can use StreamYard for free when just right out of the box. If you want to take that away and do the things like we've been doing, where you can do different overlays and things like that, it's $15 a month, which is really, really, really cheap. And it's nice because you get to do your own branding, right? You can have your own branding on there. You don't have to have, things like powered by StreamYard, and there's another one that they have. So if you do a free one, you're just going to have this little powered by StreamYard guy up in the corner. Not really a big deal, but really, really user-friendly. I have no one on the back end here helping me today. I'm just doing it myself. It's easy enough. If you can use Zoom, you can use StreamYard, and you can have up to 10 people on it at a time. You just give them a link. They don't even need to download anything. They do it straight through their browser. You get full 1080p out of it, and you can go to multiple outlets at once. So right now we're streaming on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and I think Twitch, right? So and that's all done from one place. And you do it just by clicking the button and saying you want to stream there once you connect them. Working on layouts and things like that is super easy, just drag and dropping, clicking little buttons below the screen. So there's other things out there like Restream, use what you're comfortable with, but StreamYard is used regularly within the Green Party already, and at $15 a month to get your own branded, really super affordable. And the good thing about streaming is it's really preferent. Social media is a place where video is king and streaming is God. So you really, it helps your, if you're looking to build your social media presence as a party, one of the easiest ways to do that is to have regular streams, is to go on, even if it's short, just updates to anytime you do something. If you do a workshop, I've said this for years, if you do a workshop and the only people that get to experience it are the people who were in the room at the time, you fell short on organizing there. If you're doing a workshop, you should be streaming it or at least recording it so you can put up later and people can get more access to it. So that comes to the real big systems thing when it comes to political organizing, right? And that is database and lists. Okay. The most commonly used database in the Green Party is NationBuilder. NationBuilder is an all-in-one tool. That was a big part of selling it, right? The Greens have not historically always been the most tech savvy. And you can do everything in once, and you don't have to have multiple accounts was a big selling point. The problem is, while it does everything, it doesn't do everything well. What it does well, we're generally underutilizing. We're paying a lot of money for something that we're not using all the features and getting, the return on our investment from it. Also, people talk about jack of all trades, but there's another half to that saying, and it's jack of all trades, master of none, right? NationBuilder does it all. It does your website, it does your emails, it does your database, it does your volunteer forms, it does everything that you could need as a political organization. It does it. It does websites very poorly. It's not easy to use. They are not aesthetically pleasing. They aren't well integrated with other tools. It does emails and you get unlimited emails, but it has deliverability problems. It has for years where we just can't get through to Gmail and things like that. It does databases extremely well. Their databases are deep and complicated, and this is a database-centric system. But the reality is, Greens don't have on-staff data managers. We don't have, the staff and the experienced volunteer force to really utilize the depth, right? We use NationBuilder as a database, as a searchable spreadsheet, basically. We're not using automation tools often and things like that. So we've got this really expensive system that we're not getting a lot of, and that isn't great in some of the outward-facing things like web stuff or email deliverability, right? So we have a few options. I tend to think of it in a multi-phase thing. I have a short-term solution or a short-term alternative to NationBuilder and a long-term alternative to NationBuilder. On the short term is Action Network, right? Illinois is transferring our databases from NationBuilder to Action Network right now. We pay over $300 a month for NationBuilder. We're going to be paying about a little over $100 a month once you take in web hosting for Action Network. So we're going to see huge savings. It's way more user-friendly than NationBuilder, which is good because a key part of having these lists is having on-the-ground organizers regularly engaging with the lists. going in and talking to people, having one-on-ones, doing canvassing, having conversations that are what you need to do to build the party, right? The list isn't any good if it's just sitting on a server somewhere. You need to be using the lists, and for our activists and organizers to use the lists, they need to be accessible. They need to be user friendly. I'm very happy with Action Network for that. It does our database and list management. It does our email blasts. It does fundraising for us, actions, petitions, all that kind of stuff. It has a WordPress plugin that's really, really nice. Anything I create on Action Network can be easily ported over and via shortcode into my WordPress site to look all nice and be formatable. So short term, it saves us money. It's a more user-friendly system that allows us to start developing the party culture that we need, where we are utilizing our databases on a daily basis, right? Where our organizers are talking to people, are making notes, are doing the grunt work and the putting feet to the pavement, or in social media cases, just having engaging in real conversations that bring people in. I didn't mention with social media earlier, but social media is absolutely useless to us as a party if we don't have on the ground locals for them to get involved in, right? A Twitter doesn't vote. Yard signs don't vote. Twitter retweets don't vote. Facebook likes don't vote. The key for us and why it's an organizing question is turning those likes, is turning those retweets into real relationships in the physical world that can help us build the party. And a really key part to us doing that in a systematic and organized way is using a database tool like Action Network. You can use whatever. If your state is already using NationBuilder and you're in a local party, do you have access? If you don't, you need to get it, right? You need to learn how to use the system that you have. No matter what system we're using, the database is useless if we're not using it to talk to people, right? Systems are there to provide a foundation on which we can build our organizing. And we have to keep that as our central, focus when we're building systems. How does this help us organize? Does it make it more efficient? Does it make it easier to contact people? Is it more user friendly so people will actually engage? And we need to make sure that our members know, being part of the Democratic Party, Republican Party, being part of a corporate capitalist party means that you just vote. That's what you do. That's what your membership is involved in. But being a member in a grassroots party means putting in the work, right? It means getting out there and advocating for the party, organizing and growing the party and contributing, right? Grassroots parties aren't made up of voters. They're made up of organizers, and we need way more organizers. So that's the short term, right? And pricing and stuff with Action Network, like I said, I think a Green Party local could probably get by on their free version, could definitely get by on their $10 a month version. The $100 a month version is for a hierarchical network, which means you have your state. For Illinois, we have our state organization, and then all of our chapters lined out below. And when someone signs up with a chapter, their information gets sent up to the state too. So we have a collective database with a parent and then child organizations. And so to get that feature, you have to jump to $100 a month, and $100 a month is cheaper than what most people are paying for NationBuilder, probably. If they're paying for something and is relatively reasonable for a user-friendly and pretty wide-ranging database option. Long-term, right? Long-term, I forgot to say what not to use. Don't use the van. The van is the Democratic Party's database system. It's their walk sheet system, canvassing system, that kind of stuff. The problem with using the van, and I have seen local Green parties and Green Party candidates using it, is that who owns that data in the end is the Democratic Party. If you give If you don't, it's like Act Blue. If you use them for a fundraiser, if somebody donates to you a green and you're using Act Blue, the Democratic Party now has all their information, right? It's their fundraising system. So Act Blue and the van are things we need, as independent socialists and independent organizers, we need to stay away from because they own the data. With Action Network, they're a not-for-profit, and we own our data. Our organization owns our data. They can't use it for anything. But long-term, what has long been said in the Green Party loves open source, and we love to talk about open source, though none of us are coders who know how to utilize open source, is CiviCRM. CiviCRM is used by a few states. The Howey campaign processed all of our donations and did volunteer intake and things like and email blasting through CiviCRM. This problem with CiviCRM is it is not a very user-friendly system. It has no real cost besides server costs once you have it set up and running and maintenance. But it takes a lot of know-how and a lot of work to get it set up in the first place, right? And frankly, some members of the Illinois Green Party have what I've been told is the largest CiviCRM install in the world. It has 8 million people in it, every single Illinois registered voter. And the reality was that project was shelved because they just did not have the capacity to continue to work on it, right? So why CiviCRM is not a short-term solution, despite being cheap, in theory cheap, is that it takes a good amount of know-how and initial investment to get it set up. So long-term, what I would really love to see is for the Green Party to do that thing that we always talk about, to develop our own van out of CiviCRM, but to do so is I don't know that the National Party will ever have the resources and the gumption to commit to this. So it may take state parties coming together and funding, putting their money together to help to hire developers if needed and to get things running the way they are. It's largely done and it's largely ready. It just really needs the finishing touches. But I don't think it can be done by a single state, let alone a local party. I think it's going to have to be a coalition of state parties or the national party picking it up. So when it comes to databases, that in my mind is the ideal. And it's open source, and with the right coder, we can make it do literally anything we want. But I don't see that as realistic in the short term. So in the short term, for those parties that are, don't have a database system or are struggling with, affording NationBuilder like Illinois was, Action Network's a good alternative. Check this. Let's see. Yeah. So that's really all I have in terms of the system stuff today. I'll be back next month to talk about this kind of systems for parties. They're not for parties, for campaigns. That'll be the last Saturday of April, which is the 24th at 3 p.m., just like today. Like I said, you can reach out to me at chris@howieHawkins.us. That bit.ly link will have, updated, what is a regularly updated place where you can find more resources and find more information about the stuff, some of the systems that I'm talking about. And, I'm more than happy to come and talk to a local or state party, and I'm more than happy to work out and fine tune a very specific presentation and discussion that we can have about what you need and what kind of systems could fill that gap. And one of the main reasons that I'm willing to do that, to kind of conclude, is that like I said earlier, without buy-in, none of this matters, right? So it's important that these kind of decisions are not just made by a small group of people within the leadership of the party. Some of them like Freshdesk, you can make that call. Some of even like CallHub, you can make that call, but you still have to make the sell that people can do this. And CallHub helps. There are people need a phone bank, and CallHub helps you make that sell by making it easier, right? By making it easier for them. So some of the stuff you can, but something like Basecamp, we voted that on that at a full membership meeting in Illinois, and that kind of thing is important, right? Because if people just get told we're moving to this, a lot of them won't move, right? And you don't actually see the benefits of the new system because there's no users. Getting those users is absolutely key. So I'm more than happy to help people, talk to people's parties and membership, and answer questions and help make a sell on making these kind of changes, because they're absolutely essential if we're going to do this work. I've said it a few times, it's David and Goliath, and if we're gonna, if David, in the David and Goliath story, it took skill, and we can't just try to beat them at their own game. We really, really, really have to be really effective and smart with our work. And infrastructure can really help provide the foundation for the kind of growth we need, right? Rosa Clemente called the Green Party the imperative, and it is. But it being the imperative does not mean that we're ready to be the imperative, right? We need to build towards that. We need to be ready to take that on, and a lot of that has to do with the systems and the the systems and the infrastructure that we put in place. If anybody has any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat or in the comments. I can pull them out. Again, visit that bit.ly/DOT info. And I will be back with another one of these next month. Make sure you check out the Green Socialist Organizing Project. You can find our website at greensocialist.net. There we've got our, we've got an education section where you can see what's coming up. Howie and Angela's live stream /podcast is there. And you can get involved in the different, areas of organizing that we have going on. It's going to take a lot of work to, build the Green Party into what we need it to be, which is a truly grassroots political party that can challenge the capitalist parties. So go to greensocialist.net. Right there on the front page, you can sign up. Check out some of the education stuff. Sign up to get involved in and help, put on more things like this. We will be seeing everybody soon, and I'll be back in a month on the 24th at 3 Eastern for another one of these systems workshops that'll focus on campaigns. To answer Lou's question, it's not in the one sheet. It's not in the one sheet. I need to update that one sheet with Action Network. When Illinois started using it, it jumped onto my radar. So that is a constantly updated sheet, and so I'll make sure that I go in and add that information in there too. Cool. So thank you very much, and have a good day.